Hey, and welcome to the highlights of episode number 100 with my husband, Nick Broadhurst, and me. Some of my favorite parts of this episode were when we talk about how to find your passion and purpose in life. I also loved when we chatted about how to achieve epic health, how to call in your soulmate, and when we share our conscious parenting tips and tricks. But there is so much more wisdom and inspiration that you get in the full episode. So to listen to the full podcast and to get all the info in the show notes, head to melissaambrosini.com/100 right now. Welcome, honey. It is so great to have you back on the show for the third time. The first question comes from All That Is Home, and she asked for a detailed account of our daily routine. So, honey, without taking up 45 minutes of your daily routine, can you kind of give us a little dot point run through, and then I'll give mine?
Yes, would love to. Well, I must say that I have simplified this over the years. I used to have an app called Way of Life, and it's basically an app which reaffirms making good habits. And I had this huge list that I used to go in and tick off every morning. And to be honest, I mean, I love organization. If I'm not organized, then I don't feel good. So I loved that side of it, but it was creating stress because I had so many things to tick off in the morning. So I've definitely changed how I approach my morning routine and now have just a bunch of non-negotiables. Now, that said, sometimes I do miss my non-negotiables. You've got to kind of go with the flow a little bit, but don't make excuses.
She wanted to know, how did you get started on your health journey? Once you reached that low point in hospital, what were the first steps you took to reclaim your health? Okay, so for me, the first steps were I was reading every blog and book I could get my hands on about health and nutrition. That's what I did. And I went and studied at the Institute for Integrative Nutrition. That was the first thing that I did because I realized that I was very unwell and very unhappy. But the lowest hanging fruit for me was my health. I needed to get my health sorted. I was in hospital and I had my health taken away from me. So for me, I needed to get my health sorted. So I went and studied. That's why I went and studied at IIN, the Institute for Integrative Nutrition, and it literally changed my life. So if you are just starting on your health journey, I would highly recommend a couple of books. There's The Rain Barrel Effect by Dr. Stephen Cabral. You could also listen to my episode with him. He's amazing. I would just immerse yourself in all of the amazing health podcasts on my show and on Nick's show and get some of the books that we're about to recommend. And we'll link to all of these books in the show notes as well. So you don't need to write them down. You can just head to the show notes. But I think Dr. Stephen Cabral's The Rain Barrel Effect is an amazing place to start. Also, Perfect Health by Deepak Chopra. Conscious Eating. Who's that by again, darling?
That is by Gabriel Cousins.
What are some other books that you would recommend for someone who's just starting on their health journey, or what would you recommend for that person?
You know, there's so many books out there. I think anything to do with Ayurveda is going to be really supportive to understand your body type. But I do want to make a suggestion of one book which is more inspiring than anything else, and that is Warrior Pose by Bava Ram, who's a very dear friend of ours and has also been on the show as well, on Melissa's show. It's Warrior Pose, Memoirs of a War Correspondent, How Yoga Literally Saved My Life. And that book, I believe, for anyone on a health journey is amazing because you can see just how powerful some of these practices can be. And once you read that book, I won't give it away, but if you do, and I highly recommend that you do, it shows you what's possible. You know, when you use these practices, I think that's an incredibly effective book. I will reinforce what Melissa said about the rain barrel effect. I think anybody wanting to get well, I think that's an incredible, incredible place to start. And it's easy for us to really focus on the foods. You know, very easy to look at food as the way out. And I think that is the lowest hanging fruit in many respects. And again, I would probably suggest the rain barrel effect for that, and also Perfect Health by Deepak Chopra.
All right, next question is from Marta. How do you stick to good habits?
This is a good question. I think most people do definitely struggle with this because it requires a level of discipline. And I actually have done an episode on this as well, episode number 1, Living by the Code. Now, for me, what works for me is that I have a structure. I have rules that I abide by. And for me, that really helps me thrive. And I found that it's helped a lot of people thrive. They've really resonated with this particular episode on my show. And in a nutshell, you basically have 4 different columns. You have a never column, so things that you will never do, an always column, things you'll always do, a conditional column, things that, obviously are conditional, and an unrestricted column, things that you're allowed to just go for it. That could be making love or going for walks in nature or drinking herbal teas, whatever it is, right? And so, for example, if one of your nevers is to eat beyond 80% full, then that's it. The question's over. You know that your code is that you never eat beyond 80% full. So that really helps you get really clear on what's important to you, and it keeps you accountable. And I find it's really powerful if you have a friend or a family member or a partner that you can actually share your code with. And if they see you stepping outside, they can say, hey, that's not in your code.
What is the best piece of advice you have ever been told?
Be love.
Who told you that?
Jesus.
I reckon I did.
Yeah, no. When Melissa and I met, I was really, really astounded at the amount of dialogue there was around love, because I definitely lived from that place. If I didn't, I couldn't have attracted Melissa, but I'd never met someone who really embodied that on such a true level in all areas of her life. So when we started writing on our glass in this removable sort of crayon, be love, it really became my mantra, and it still is my mantra. And it's always that guiding light that when you get lost, when you feel like, you're in the heat of an argument or you don't know how to react to any particular situation, if you return to love, that is always a really good internal compass.
And it's still written on our glass, isn't it?
It is. It's not coming off either.
So the best piece of advice that I've ever been given, this is such a deep question. There's so many pieces of advice, but I think...
Say yes to your husband. Marry me.
How is that a piece of advice? Who gave me that? No one gave me that advice.
Yeah, the universe said, this is a great idea, Melissa. You got to do it.
I don't think that's what they mean, honey. The first thing that came to my mind was being told you've got to be your own best friend. And a few people told me this when I was younger, and I thought, whatever. No, I've got heaps of best friends. I don't need to be my own best friend. And I remember being in primary school in year 5 or 6 when I first heard that, and it hit me, but it didn't sink in. And now reflecting back, I'm like, that was the best piece of advice that I was given at that time. If only I'd soaked it up and really listened to it, because we really do need to be our own best friend, and we need to teach our children this. So Laura Mitchell wants to know, what is my daily skincare routine?
Well, this won't take long because it's pretty simple.
It's very, very simple. I am very basic. I use doTERRA essential oils and a carrier oil, either a fractionated coconut oil or an olive oil. And basically, for my body, I lather myself in those beautiful oils that my soul intuitively chooses that day. And for my face, I usually use whatever's leftover residue on my hands from that I've rubbed all over my body, and I just rub that over my face. That's it. All right, next question. How did I overcome chronic fatigue and you mold toxicity issues? Okay, so this is a really ginormous question. Food. Look at the food you're eating. Get rid of all the toxicity, the gluten, the sugar, the dairy. Get rid of all of that stuff. Yes, food is one element. But then, and especially if you've got chronic fatigue, look at the movement, walking in nature, doing yin yoga. Then you've got to be making sure that you're detoxing if you've got something like mold toxicity. But you've also got to be looking at meditation. So wherever you are in your health journey, wherever you sit right now, please take a holistic approach. It's not just about what you eat. It's not just about, your mindset. You have to look at everything, making sure that your nervous system is getting out of fight or flight and coming into rest and digest. But let's move on now to some wealth questions. Okay, so the first question is, I'm curious about a manifestation mindset. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I mean, that's a big, broad, beautiful question. I will just bring one simple statement in, which I've seen really support a lot of people. And it's not mine. Nothing's mine. Nothing's original. It's just, we're all just saying things with our own unique flavor on it. And this is very simple. So I'd write this down. You attract what you fear. You repel what you want. So if we break that down, if you fear not having enough money to pay your bills, what do you think the universe is going to give you? Is it just going to kindly hand you all this abundance? Or is it going to give you not enough so that you can't pay your bills? Because the only way for you to learn is to actually find yourself in that situation, right? So you attract what you fear. You can look at so many areas of your life. If you fear not having a soulmate or a partner, are you going to attract one?
All right, the next question comes from Gypsy Heart Yogi. I would love to know how you encourage new entrepreneurs who are not financially ready to take the leap into following their passion, trusting that the right abundance will come to them at the right moment. You want to go first?
Yeah, it sort of comes back to what I was saying before about taking action. Look, even if you're not financially in a position to just jump into your passion, totally understand it. I get it. I had to do transitional periods as well, moving from different careers. So it is a balancing act, and we have obligations and things we have to pay for. So we have to be responsible, right? We've got to be responsible, especially if we have families. If there is something that lights you up, like really lights you up, one of the best things you can do is just do that thing every day, whatever it is. Now, if you can do it for an hour, your path to moving into that as a full-time thing will be faster. If you do it for 10 minutes, it'll keep the dream alive. But just doing what you love every day will set you on the right path. But every single person can do one thing, and that is to figure out, okay, what is the next step? The next logical step I have to take to move this passion, this purpose of mine forward. There's always one next step. It might just be one email. It might just be one phone call. If you chunk it down into just steps, that's really going to help you, because one step is something that every single person can do, and it keeps you moving in the right direction. So starting there, I think, is a really good place.
And I'd just add to that, it's okay to be in a position where you haven't taken that leap yet, but you want to, but maybe financially you have to stay in this job. There's two things you can do. Like what Nick said, keep taking action every day toward your dream business, your dream passion, or whatever it is. Take action every single day, but also find the gratitude in your current job, because otherwise it's going to be torture. You're going to hate it and resent every second while you're there, and that is no fun for anyone. I think this is a really good segue into Jessica 10's question. I would love to hear more about rewriting our money story and fostering an abundance mindset and manifesting wealth. This is where it all starts. And we have got to rewrite our money stories. If you're anything like me, I grew up in a very Catholic Italian family where you've got to work hard. You got to flog it out. That was the mentality that I witnessed. And it wasn't until I hit rock bottom in 2010 that I was laying in hospital and I realized that, hang on a minute, this isn't my money belief. This is my dad's. And this isn't my belief around health. This is so-and-so's. And so I went through all the different areas of my life, relationships, parenting, spirituality. And I was like, these aren't even mine. And that's why Chapter 4, Dive into Your Ocean, in my book Open Wide, is so important. It's about getting really clear on your core values and your beliefs so that you can call in someone who is aligned. But before I talk about that, let's go back to rewriting your money story. It is imperative. It is so imperative. I would literally write a love letter to money. This is what Peter Kelly, one of our beautiful friends, talks about. I've had her on the show twice. Check out her episodes on my podcast. Oh my gosh, life-changing. So good. In particular, her first episode about financially freeing yourself is just amazing. But she says you've got to write a love letter to money. Say sorry for the way that you treat it, because guess what? Just like the universe, money has ears. And if you keep talking shit about money, it's not going to come to you. It's like, F you. I'm going to go somewhere else. I'm going to go over here to Nick, who's got a really nice relationship with money and who loves me and who is very grateful for me and who says thank you every time I buy an organic apple. So money's like, see you later. You're talking shit about me. I'm going to go over here to Nick and I'm going to flow abundantly to Nick because he's so grateful and he's so nice to me.
And I know that he'll do something good with it.
Exactly. All right. The next question, how do I figure out my life's purpose or my dream job? This came up actually a few times. So let's chat about this. Like, for someone who is unsure of their purpose, their passion, how to find their dream job, what would you say? I mean, what would you say?
Yeah, it's a challenging one because I think, especially now with social media, as much as I love Instagram, I think it's an incredible tool. It's very easy for people to get stuck in that cycle of comparisonitis. Oh my God, look at her. She's an author. Oh my God, look at her. She makes money from just being an influencer, in inverted commas. And we can often think we need to be doing more than what we're already doing because we're seeing all the time other people doing things that may be aspirational or that may create envy. And sometimes we just got to kind of chill out, because life's not a race. All the money stuff for me didn't really click until the last few years. I'm 40 this year, so I've had to earn that. I've had to make all the so-called mistakes / lessons to get to where I am now. But when it comes to purpose, I think deep down, there is always a calling of some sort. And it doesn't have to be writing music. It doesn't have to be painting or writing books. It's different for every single person. It could be being the best mother to your children. That could be your purpose. Sometimes we just got to chill out and just take a step back and don't think we have to be this great big thing. It doesn't have to be that way. We all have different callings and purposes in life. So if you do a quick exercise, close your eyes if you're not driving, and imagine you're in bed and you've just woken up from the most beautiful sleep. You feel nourished, you feel alive, you feel excited about the day, and you know that you do not have to think about money. It's all covered, totally covered for the rest of your life. Never again. All your needs, all your dreams covered. So you get out of bed, and what do you do next? Apart from your morning routine. But what do you do that day? What do you do with your time? What do you naturally gravitate towards? What's the first thing that comes to your mind? Whatever the first thing is, capture it.
And I would add to that, writing out your perfect day or writing out your dream day.
Yeah, totally.
And working backwards. Okay, so this is my dream day. What do I then have to do? What inspired action do I have to take? Coming back to what Nick was saying before, what is the one thing I can do today to take me one step closer to that? Hannah Smith, how do you find motivation and just get started? How do you know when to quit something if you're not a quitter? This kind of motivation, procrastination, organization are not something I struggle with. And I spoke a lot about this in my podcast episode with Erin Falconer. So go and listen to that. She wrote a whole book on how to get shit done, doing less, but achieving more. It's an amazing podcast. Go and listen to it. But If you are struggling with motivation, organization, and procrastination, I would ask yourself why. Because when you are doing what your soul is here to do, motivation and procrastination are not an issue. Natalie would love to hear about how you keep your relationship connected, especially during our busy lives. Okay, how we keep our relationship connected and how we stay connected is by making our relationship a priority. You don't just get married and say, I do, and then don't work at your relationship anymore. I see that a lot. People get married and then there's no more working on that relationship with your partner, with your children, with your friends, with your parents. Relationships take energy. If you want them to thrive and grow and evolve, you've got to invest time and love and energy to them. It's like a plant. You know, I've got beautiful plants in my house in Bondi, stunning plants, fiddles, all sorts of beautiful things. But if I want them to thrive, I've got to give them the right amount of water, the right amount of sunlight, the right amount of air, everything. And that's the same as your relationship. You've got to give it the right amount of love and energy and attention in order for it to grow and thrive. So the way that we stay connected and the way that we support our relationship is by firstly making it a priority and carving out time in our life, in our day to connect. Because if we don't schedule in time together, our calendars get filled up with everything else. So we schedule in, we have date nights in, we have walks in together, we schedule it in. And I think that is really important if you want your relationship to thrive.
Yeah, we could talk seriously for hours on this topic, but I've actually gone into depth already on this topic in my show. So I'm going to give you a few episodes to listen to. The first one is number 32, An Orgasm a Day Keeps the Divorce Lawyer Away. I think that's pretty self-explanatory, right?
It's a really good one.
The next is episode 54, How to Keep the Spark Alive. I mean, that's going to answer so many of your questions. So definitely check that out. And then we spoke about living by the code, which was episode 1. And that's in relation to, as an individual, life, the sort of boundaries that you put around your own life so that you can thrive. But I also did one called Living by the Lover's Code, which was episode 56. So check that out because we have our own non-negotiables. I can tell you right now, when we don't have certain things clicking in our life, especially our love life, I mean, we can joke about happy wife, happy life. Of course, it's such a cliched saying. But is there anything more true than that?
Kat would like to know, as a fellow stepmama, I'd love to hear both your perspectives on being in a blended family and the challenges that you feel and how you overcome them.
Oh, this is such a big question. This is one of Melissa's greatest spiritual challenges.
I feel like we need a whole episode just on parenting.
Well, just on step parenting, just about.
Just on step parenting. I think that's a good idea, but let's touch on it now. Okay, so stepping into being a stepmom, we call it bonus mum, was completely new territory for me because my parents are still together. Nick's parents are still together. Nick's parents have been married for like 40 something years. My parents, 40 years. And so I didn't grow up in a blended family. So I don't know what it's like. And then all of a sudden I'm in this blended family. And it's definitely, I've needed training wheels. I have needed training wheels because I didn't know how to ride that bike. I had no examples. All of my aunties and uncles are still together. Like all of my friends' families are still together. So I didn't have any examples of blended families or how to even navigate them. I didn't know. So it's been really big growth for me.
Big challenge.
Yeah, it's also brought so much joy and support. And Leo is a big teacher for me, a huge teacher. All children are, they'll show you all the areas that you've got to look at within yourself. But I think, there's a couple of things with step parenting that I've really realized, and that is letting go of control. We cannot control what happens in the other home. All we can do is do the very best when Leo is in our home. And so he spends 1 week there and 1 week with us. And I have stressed and lost sleep and got so upset.
And to be clear on that, we're actually really grateful to Leo's mum. She's a great mother. And he gets two very different experiences. But what's most important is he's surrounded by love. And the things that were triggering Melissa were actually really inconsequential. They were small.
Oh, like
Food.
him eating gluten, like something like that. Like these are the things. Like she is an amazing mum, and it was little things like that I'm like, why am I getting so upset about gluten, like or dairy or sugar or like little things like that? Like, let it go, Melissa. Surrender, open wide. That was my mantra. Let it go, surrender, open wide.